Good afternoon. My name is Jim Conlan, and welcome back to this latest week's edition of the Entertainment Show as we look ahead of upcoming blockbuster movies and TV series that are being released here in Ireland in the next month or so. So far this week, we've discussed Mortal Kombat with Max Swan and Jessica McNamee. We've discussed Wrath of Man, also coming out here in Ireland as well. And we've touched on a TV series like Dim that is coming out as well. But another sort of TV series that has been on our screens for the last few years or so. It's on to its final season. It's premiering here in channel Syfy UK here in Ireland. It's on to its season 4. The one and only Wynonna Earp, and it's the main star of the show. The person who plays Wynonna herself, Melanie Scrofano, joins us this evening online. And Melanie, is it a hint of sadness and remorse that we've come to this stage that we're on season 4 of Wynonna Earp?
Yeah, I think so. I think I always knew it would be difficult. I thought season 1 I thought would be all we would get, to be honest, because I just didn't think I was that lucky. And so I every season kind of prepare for the end, but I think realistically I was not prepared. Yeah, it's been tough.
And I suppose, Melanie, in terms of Wynonna Earp, for viewers and our listeners that haven't seen it before, it's really, you played the great granddaughter of Wyatt Earp, a gunslinger in the 1800s in America, who's got a special sort of a gun or weapon that sort of, when he shoots it, can banish demons to hell. Am I correct in saying that?
You sure are. Yeah. It sounds funny when you say it. Yeah, Wyatt was famous for the OK Corral, and his best friend Doc Holliday is also part of our show, and makes a big is a big part of Wynonna's life, as well as her great-great-grandfather. So it's a cool kind of twist there.
And I suppose, Melanie, the show is set in a town called Purgatory, and we see for the first sort of 3 seasons. I was looking back today at a bit of the trailers in terms of learning about the show as such, and it's all about this. It sort of reminds me a bit of. It's not really. This is more adult themed. It's not really cheesy or corny in terms of Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Angel in terms of that, but we sort of get this sort of family that's trying to rid the town of demons and sort of sorcery and trickery, that's constantly trying to evade at the heart of the town of Purgatory.
Yeah, and what's fun about the show is that the characters are with the audience, in the sense that Wynonna doesn't even think the curse is real. She's heard of it, but she thinks it's just a bunch of drunk locals. And so, she doesn't even believe it. So as she discovers it, she sees the world as being as crazy as the audience does, which is kind of fun.
And I suppose, Melanie, in terms of the show itself, I know it was filmed in Alberta, Canada, and that can be cold at the best of times, I imagine. And in terms of shooting the 4 seasons in Alberta, was that to try and give the sort of feel of a sort of a Western type sort of village, a remote sort of location that could sort of get the sort of feel that there's a bit of ancestry there? Was that the sort of type that she sort of went for in terms of shooting in Alberta?
Yeah, well, the thing about Alberta is that, I mean, first of all, the landscape is one of a kind. The skies there are exceptionally wide, and the views you can get, and you don't have to leave Calgary. You don't have to go very far to get these incredible vistas. So it was partly that, and partly it's just the fact that the lifestyle there, there are still cowboys and cow people there. I mean, there's ranches, and so you don't have to go very far to find even background players to fit this world really seamlessly.
And Melanie, in total, 49 episodes of a series. You must be sort of thrilled in terms of that, really nearly reaching the sort of 50 mark. And I suppose the constants for the 49 episodes has been yourself. It's been, you mentioned the Doc Holliday character played by Tim Rosnan, and then your sister Waverly Earp played by Dominique Provost. You've been three sort of core sort of characters running throughout the 4 seasons of the show.
Yeah, I would add Kat Burrell, who plays Nicole Hott. She wasn't necessarily part of the original kind of core cast in the first few episodes, but she in my mind, she has been there the entire time, and actually she has been there the entire time. So yeah, the four of us have been on quite a journey together, and it's pretty magical.
And I suppose, Melanie, being part of a sci-fi sort of show in terms of that sort of audience that sort of it brings, and the sort of hysteria we know for the sort of sci-fi fans, is that something you really sort of enjoyed, playing that sort of mythical sort of fantasy type sort of adventure in terms of as an actress, getting away from sort of real world sort of problems and issues and get deep and delve into sort of the fantasy world as such?
Yeah, well, it was definitely a steep learning curve, and I learned a lot being on the show in terms of how these types of stories are told and the behind the scenes stuff. I also just thought it was you're very rarely so lucky to be able to do action and stunts and drama and comedy, and it had everything. It has everything, and so you cannot, unless you are just the worst kind of person, you cannot get bored on this show. It was just a thrill to be on.
Melanie, you mentioned something there that intrigued me there in your last answer. You mentioned stunts. And I wonder, starting off, was Wynonna Earp in the early seasons, was a big budget production that you had stunt doubles, or from the off were you sort of thrown into your own sort of stunts, or did you volunteer yourselves to get involved in your sort of own stunts, or was it a big sort of budget sort of scenario where stunt doubles were readily available for you?
No, there is no such thing as a big budget scenario in Canada.
Okay.
So, but which it plays to our, it forces us to be creative. But in terms of stunts, yeah, there was certainly, I always had a stunt double. They would never, ever compromise our safety or our comfort. And even sometimes we would be comfortable doing something and they would say, you know what, we're just not going to risk it. For example, the motorcycle in season 1 was a big thing, but you can't have your lead on icy roads.
Okay.
On a motorcycle. Insurance wise, it was just not feasible.
And Melanie, in terms of, you mentioned this in terms of a venture as such, and I suppose it has 4 seasons. It has been a long part of your life, and in terms of that sort of season sort of scenario, normally I was looking at show you normally film between 12 to 15 episodes a season. Was each season, was it maybe a 6 to 10 month sort of adventure sort of trek from the time you started filming, or was it much shorter? Did you go through a season maybe in 3 to 4 months?
No, it was probably the 5 to 6 mark. Yeah, 5 to 6 months from start to finish. So it's a long time away from home.
And you mentioned that it's a long time away from home, but in terms of maybe the 4 seasons mark, did you have to sort of, were you on sort of a deal where you had to hit a percentage of, say, target numbers to get a renewal, or did you have sort of comfort from the off that you were guaranteed maybe 20 to 30 episodes, and if you hit that mark?
Yeah, no. There were no guarantees, and I definitely thought in season 1, I was grateful for 12 episodes. Like, honestly, I was grateful that we went straight to that. We didn't have to shoot a pilot and then try to get the show after that. So I was just happy with 12 episodes. And then to be honest, I just absolutely refused to acknowledge numbers at all. It intimidated me too much. And I just thought, it's not what can I do at this point? Like, the numbers are what they are. So it doesn't help me to know them. So I never bothered. I think for us, though, it was very clear that it was our social media following that was really the driving force of whether or not we were coming back.
And Melanie, I suppose it's important to note from our viewers that there is a comedy sort of book, a comic sort of book based around this TV sort of series. And when you were researching for the role and learning about the role as such, did you sort of touch on that sort of comic book, or did you, from straight off, did you feel that you were going, when you saw the script for the role, that the producers and directors had in mind that was a sort of different scenario, that you hadn't to delve too much into that comedy sort of book role to get an understanding for the character?
That's a good question. I don't actually remember. I just knew that I got the script and I didn't know how to play it any other way. So I don't know if that's because that was all I knew how to do. So I just did all I had. But I do remember seeing the comic book and seeing her and just thinking, oh, I'm not going to get this. But then we did, the whole point was always to actually make her younger than she was in the book. So in the book, she's kind of been established and she is Wynonna Earp already. Whereas in the show, Emily Andress, the showrunner and creator, wanted to kind of go back in time to the origin story, if you will. And so I had some freedom in that sense.
And I suppose, Melanie, I'll come to the sort of penultimate question before I sort of finish off with the final question as such. In terms of your character, Wynonna Earp, let's pretend there was a sort of a synopsis of the sort of show, a sort of book was made, and they put your character, Wynonna Earp, obviously the lead character, obviously first page, and they left maybe 2 blank sentences underneath her name. In terms of, and they asked you, obviously, Melanie Scrofano, having played the role, to write those 2 sentences. What would you like those 2 sentences to read to describe what sort of an individual Wynonna Earp was?
I would write all bark and all bite. I don't know what I would write. I would something like that.
All bark and all bite. And Melanie Scrofano, will turn it over to your character, Wynonna Earp, now for the last 30 seconds. And she might enlighten all our audience and listeners and viewers why they should tune in en masse in the upcoming weeks to see the final season of Wynonna Earp on channel Syfy UK. And over to the one and only Wynonna Earp herself. Take it away.
Oh, well, the last season of this show, first of all, I directed episode 3. I'm very proud.
Okay.
So teamwork makes the dream work. And the whole season is just the most Earpiest one of all. It's got a ton of heart, a ton of heartbreak, a ton of love, and a ton of laughter. And there's something in it for everyone. So I hope you enjoy it.
On that note, Melanie Scrofano, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today as we look ahead to joyful anticipation for the final season of Wynonna Earp here in Ireland, and obviously showing on the UK as well on channel Syfy UK. Pleasure for joining us today, Melanie. Hopefully there'll be many more projects along the Syfy universe for you in the near future as well. And but for the moment, I don't know if it's sunny there in Toronto, Canada, but hopefully you're enjoying yourself, and hopefully we a prosperous 2021 for you for the remainder of the year. Stay safe, stay well, and Melanie Scrofano, thanks again and best of luck.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.